Thank you for joining XR which is India's first AR/VR focused podcast. And today I'm delighted and honored to have with me Mr. Krishnan Sundararajan, who's the co-founder of Loka, which is India's first gamified metaverse app. So Krishnan, really appreciate you taking time being part of the podcast. So why don't we start with a small introduction and background?
So firstly, thank you so much for having me. I've actually been a audience of your podcast for a
Oh,
very
thank you.
very
That's so
long
very
time,
sweet.
and it's great to be one of the feature on your podcast. So on that note, let me start off by telling you what Loka is or what the vision of Loka is. Loka essentially is a metaverse or a 3D virtual space where we are trying to recreate not only how real world cities look, but also how they feel. Now, how they look is the easier part to build because you just have to build a 3D model of the city or the location. How they feel is the difficult part to build, and that involves culture, that involves creating the vibe and the feel of the place. How do we do that? We do that through various means of putting things like e-commerce into the system, putting things like virtual programs or virtual shows into the system, putting gamification into the system. So essentially what we're trying to create is a localized version of an Indian game.
Right. Yeah. So thank you, Christian, first of all. I mean, taking time, being part of the podcast and explaining to us what Loka is. Because obviously there's so much haziness around what a metaverse is or supposed to be. So it's
Yeah.
very uncharted territory. So maybe I think there's a lot of people who don't really understand metaverse is. So you told me, I mean, what your platform is and what you guys are doing. The integration of e-com, virtual shows, and things like that. Maybe, I mean, let's step back a little bit behind and explain to the ones who don't really understand what a metaverse is, what the metaverse is on the first place, and how it's going to help people. So maybe we could
Oh,
start over there.
absolutely. I'm so glad we're starting on that front because, in fact, as a practice, I do that with every meeting that I have is explain what metaverse is and then come to what we are building,
Right,
right?
right.
So essentially, the way I look at it is metaverse has three important components, right? One are the virtual worlds. One are entry points, virtual worlds being like Fortnite, PUBG, Loka, Decentraland, so on and so forth. Entry points being a PC, a console, a mobile, a VR, and so on and so forth. And third are services. Services could be anything from a asset ownership decentralized service like an NFT, a financial decentralized service like a crypto, a voice or a video integration service like an Agora, a matchmaking service like a Photon or a PlayFab, and so on and so forth. So one thing that we definitely need to understand here is even though all of this contribute to the metaverse, none of it is the metaverse. So for example, crypto is not the metaverse, virtual worlds are not the metaverse. It is one aspect of the metaverse, and together all of the three combine together to form what we call as the metaverse.
Right.
That is the definition that I know and I can tell, right? And coming back to what we are just building one aspect of it, which is the virtual worlds. We might introduce another aspect in the future, which is access. Currently we can be accessed through a mobile device, and we are working on PC as well. But in the future we are building a VR compatible world where VR could be used in the world. And third is we use various services to access this metaverse, like Agora for voice, or Photon for matchmaking, and so on and so forth.
We're still in a very early stage of the complete what metaverse is going to be, and you have made a basic layer which is business ready, which is extremely commendable, with those three the points which you said. So talk to us about setting up this Loka. And you've given us a very overall broader view, kind of be a little bit more narrower and say how is it adding value, how is it, what's the
Oh, absolutely.
monetization, and
Got it.
yeah.
One of the things, again, I do this, and I like to structure things in various boxes, right? So I also structure various metaverses in the box of what activity they do or what
Right.
purpose they have, right?
Right.
So I would put a metaverse like a Fortnite or a Roblox or a Minecraft in the bucket of gamification or game like metaverse, right? While I would put something like a let's say like a Verbella, or let's say like a Arthur, let's say like our Indian version of the metaverse, which is Next Meet, as one of the metaverse that's of the activity of business, right? Where business related function can be taken forward, and something like a Zwift or a Be Cool as in the activity of sports, right? When you can cycle and perform various sports related activity in a metaverse together. So on that various boxes, Loka currently lies in the box of social, where this world that we are creating and the worlds that we'll create after this will have a core function of social, where people can pop into the world, they can watch an Arijit concert, they can shop at Fab India, they can try out, let's say, Ola Electric in the world, they can drink a Red Bull and start flying because Red Bull gives you wings, they can maybe meet their life partner in the world, they can hang around with their friends and watch an IPL event together, watch a movie together, and that's the core function of this. Currently we have CP, after this we'll be having Baga Beach, after that we'll be having Marine Drive in Mumbai, maybe one day we'll have Sydney, maybe one day we'll have Ho Chi Minh in Vietnam, and so on and so forth. That's the bigger vision, is to create a social place to hang out and perform whatever activity you do in real life, but virtually.
The interesting part is that you are integrating third part applications. That makes it really, really interesting. We'll get into that. I want you to first talk about the challenges of building this platform. Is it built on Unity, Unreal? Does it sit on a blockchain platform? And what's the upper limit of the guests which can be present on your application?
Great, and I'm glad I'm in this podcast because the questions are so relevant. So one of the things that so firstly, it's built on Unity, and it is built with a core thesis, which is that multiplayer games are not about great graphics or great gameplay. It is essentially about people, right? The more amount of people there are in a multiplayer game, the better it becomes as an experience, right? On that core experience point or thesis, we built this saying that this game should be played by a device that's 8,000 rupees in India, with absolutely low RAM, with low storage, with low computing power, with erratic internet. All of that taken into account, we'll create a game that an 8,000 rupee device could run, and on that basis we created this. And some of the people that give us a feedback tell us, you have to improve the graphics. I know we have to, and it's consciously done the way it is done, and maybe we'll probably bring out a higher fidelity version in the future, but right now it is consciously built in the way it is built. And on that front, currently it's built on Unity. Currently, it can have 30 concurrent user in one room. There can be indefinite rooms in the world. Also, currently people can talk to each other. We are, however, working on a system where, just like how Spatial does it, you will have your face as your avatar's face in the future, and we're building something very similar to that. And by the way, we're not using Ready Player One to do this. We're doing an in-house thing at the moment.
How difficult was it to build this platform? You said that at this point in time you have mapped Connaught Place, and then
Yeah.
eventually you vision to kind of go to, I mean, in a map, maybe like a Baga Beach or Bombay. How difficult was building something like this?
The question is actually twofold. The easier part is just building the map, because essentially, if whatever we've built here is not an exact replica of Connaught Place in Delhi, it is a inspired replica. I would put it that way, where it looks like Connaught Place. There is no dome in the real Connaught Place that you have just behind me, but there is a dome in this world. The roads are not an exact replica, but it's an inspired replica, and that's the basic thesis of design that we wanted to build any city on or any place on. The second aspect is, how do you make CP feel like CP? And that's the difficult part. because when you so whenever we continuously currently we are going from CP to Baga to Marine Drive and so on so forth, you have to make a Baga not feel like Delhi and a Marine Drive not feel like Baga, right? And for that we are very consciously putting small little things, like let's say like background noises. So if you are in Delhi, you will hear a background noise saying oh bhaiya, versus if you're in Mumbai, you'll hear oh dada, versus if you're in, let's say, Bangalore or Chennai, you will hear oh Anna. And that are small things. If so, we are introducing a game in the world called Golgappa Challenge. So in Delhi, it will be called Golgappa Challenge. In Mumbai, it will be called Pani Puri Challenge. In Kolkata, it will be called Puchka Challenge, because that's relevant as a culture function, right? So we are even in the artists that we want to sort of showcase, we'll probably have a Arijit Singh here. However, we'll have a let's say Rana Raghubati show in if we were to build a Hyderabad map, and we'll probably have a Rajnikant or a Surya perform if we were to have it in Chennai. So that are small elements that we are very conscious about, that reflects a certain culture. And I'll tell you how this actually plays even in our favor at the moment, right? So we built a Connaught Place map, but we never told people that only Delhi walas could come here. Anybody in the world could pop into this world, but it just happens that 80% of our audience who comes to this world is from Delhi, because they relate to this. And that just reaffirms our basic notion that if we tomorrow build a Marine Drive, Mumbaikars will pop into the world much more than Delhi walas will pop into the world. That is the basic thesis.
The idea of the metaverse is supposed to be open, it's supposed to be interoperable, it's supposed to be decentralized, and it's supposed to be created by the users. Are
Hmm.
you leveraging that created by the user? Because I think community driven, community accessed, where for example, there is Niantic who's working on, where they're mapping the entire world, because the community can, like, scans through the app, the spaces. So is the future vision something in that line where you will
Oh,
end up?
absolutely. And I'm so glad you asked that question. And I'll tell you how we look at it. And it's kind of different from how Metaverse essentially looked at the moment with various companies, right? And we believe that a Metaverse will only succeed. It is pretty much very similar to how all the religious books across the world, whether it's Bible, Bhagavad Gita, or Quran, all of these book of Genesis sort of define world creation, right? First, God created the world, then He defined physics into the world, and then He put people and allowed them to sort of evolve the world they want to. And that's how any world can be created. And the best is the versions that we've already seen with various religious books out there, right? And that's how we want to create the world as well. And coming back to focusing on how Loka envisions this, we envision this in a way that let's say today a business or a content creator can interact with their audience on text via Twitter, on photos via Instagram, on videos via YouTube. But tomorrow we want to be the gaming partner through which a business or a content creator can interact with their audience. If tomorrow, let's say, like a Tanmay Bhatt wants to create a Tanmay land, he should be able to create a land where his fans pop into the world, talk to each other, play some Tanmay Bhatt games, watch his exclusive videos, buy some merchandise, and that becomes a Discord plus gaming plus Zoom plus e-commerce all fit into one in a game world. That's the bigger vision. So on and to sort of add upon that point, we also think that not everybody in this world should be able to buy a land to create a private space. And we want to work on this front on a freemium model, where in the future we want to give everybody free land to create whatever they want in that land, to invite their friends, have a party, have a blast together, maybe catch up, and so on and so forth, and then build a paid version over it, where we are saying, let's say 500 square feet is the land that you get for free, and there are limited services that you can get in this free land. However, you want to sort of expand this, make it more premium as a space, then, and become, let's say, the namer of Tanmay Bhatt and Shah Rukh Khan, then probably you will have to pay a little more on this. And that's the vision that we have.
Right. Yeah, the opportunity is so awesome. You mentioned about, Tanmay Bhatt possibly having a small piece of land, doing his own, comedy night, or maybe Rana Dagobati, doing his stuff, or Arijit Singh, so the opportunity is humongous. And once these metaverse, these virtual worlds becomes really, I mean, as realistic as a real world, where we can actually have these concerts and bring those experience that we have in the physical world in the virtual world. I mean, it's going to get really, really exciting. Talk to us about your monetization bit. You are partnering with a lot of brands. How does the monetization of your platform work?
Okay, I'll tell you both actually. I'll tell you how it works right now and how we intend it to work, maybe once we've built a certain scale in the game, right? So currently our focus is not on monetization. It's actually on two metrics, which is either a DAO or a MAU, and minutes of time spent or mods. These are the primary two metrics that we are tracking for the next 18-24 months. However, uh, once a certain DAO or a MAU or mods is reached, then we want to sort of activate various sources of monetization, which is as small as charging store rent for all these stores that we have in the world, or charging ticketing for all the events that we'll have in this world, or charging, let's say, currently we are building arcade machines in the world where third party games can be played by players, like a Flappy Bird, or or let's say like a Pac-Man or a Tetris, or so on and so forth. So all that will be monetized. And the fourth one that we are currently monetizing on, which is sort of brand promotion. And these are small things like, let's say, we've just partnered with Red Bull, where we're introducing Red Bull cans in the world where people can drink it and start flying because Red Bull gives you wings. Or a shoe manufacturer where you wear that shoe and you tend to run 2x faster because it makes you run faster. Or introducing Ola Electric into the world, or other scooties into the world, and so on and so forth. That's how we are currently monetizing on the fourth one that I just mentioned. However, we would like to monetize on various things like e-commerce, events, let's say tomorrow land, let's say tomorrow gamification, so on and so forth. That is how we intend to monetize in the future.
Right, yeah, you already have an MVP. From here, I think the sky is the limit, because you keep on iterating, figuring out what are the problem areas. Because I guess, as you go, as you are building, tying up with partners, creating these experiences, creating the gamification of the entire space, I guess there'll be constantly learnings through which you can, iterate and build on the future. You
Oh,
mentioned that,
absolutely.
yeah, you had built a couple of games, the Golgappa challenge, and talk to us about the gamification of Loka-India'S, for
So
example.
currently, so some of the games that we are introducing here would be, as a test case, going to be a single player game. So you go up to that game, and there is, so you will be playing against a AI, where the AI, so you will be given, let's say, like 10 Golgappas, and whoever taps and eats the 10 fastest wins, and you will get a prize in the game. And once you have certain XPs in the game, you unlock certain powers in the game as well. So that's how the current world functions. But however, we don't want anything to be single player in this world. That is something that we're very clear on. Going forward, however, this will be, we want to create a game where even in the Golgappa challenge, you and I could have a face off where whoever eats the 10 Golgappa wins. But not just that, I want people around us to also witness this and maybe cheer me, or even abuse me or boo me while we are doing that. And that is what creates the real fun. And that this is for us a test case. If this runs successfully, the second phase from here on will be the multiplayer version, and the third phase from here on will be a multiplayer version that people can also witness while it's happening. So that's the gamification aspect of it. And I also mentioned that we will be putting arcade machines into the game, where third party games can be played, and we are sort of currently partnering with studios and publishers to get their games into our world, because we believe that we are certainly not the experts on of building the metaverse. We need to partner with as many people as we can to build this out, and hence we are reaching out to as much help we can get. Also, we are introducing a feature that was introduced, I think, back in 2017, which is, I think, Verizon partnered with Minecraft back in the day, where you could make a call in the Minecraft game and talk to anybody outside the Minecraft game while playing the game, right? So we are doing something with something very similar like that, with a telecom company in India, and you will be able to make calls from within the game and talk to people outside the game.
Yeah. So we are breaking the boundaries of what we call unbelievable, because I think the metaverse will. It's. I'm sure there's so many people who must be listening in and not understanding, what these two guys are talking. But I guess to simplify this, we are building a digital world, and in that digital world there'll be endless possibilities. The only
Yes.
thing that will stop you is your imagination. You as
Oh,
an
absolutely. I
entrepreneur.
believe that there are three things that limit the metaverse, which is an internet connection, an entry device, and imagination. These are the three things that limit the metaverse. That's about it. And one thing that definitely does not limit the metaverse is physics. You can do whatever you want here.
Right, yeah, I guess, yeah, we'll be breaking a lot of physical boundaries. The physics that we understand of the physical world is gonna go for a toss in the metaverse. Would you like to talk about
Absolutely.
your team strength, and what was the cost for building out your MVP?
Okay, sure. So let me just step back here a little and sort of tell you why did I do it in the first place, right? And then I'll come to what my team is and how we've built this, right? And this sort of comes to me from playing this game back in the day called GTA Punjab. I don't know if you've played it. This was actually a mod of Liberty City Grand Theft Auto, and the great part about this game was you steal the taxi of the taxi driver, and the taxi driver used to be a Sardarji, and he used to run behind you and say something in Punjabi, and that just hit me really hard, because somebody in a AAA game was speaking to me in a language that I somewhat understand in this world, right? And then I've played like a Call of Duty Himachal Pradesh or Uncharted Tamil Nadu or Hitman Mumbai and so on and so forth. I realized that localization is a very, very important feature to creating a game, right? And on that front, I said, why don't we create a game that essentially feels Indian in nature, that where people don't have to listen to somebody speak in English or wear clothes of brands that don't even exist in our country. Why don't we make people wear Fab India, or let's say a Nalli sari, or go to a concert by Amitabh Bachchan, or let's say we just had a Daler Mehndi concert in party night. That's the kind of thing that I envisioned when I was trying to create this. And on that front, I started doing this by July 2020. I was alone doing this back then, and I can make apps and stuff, but I soon realized that building a game is an entirely different beast altogether, right? So I built a very shitty a version, and that got us into ISB's accelerator program. And then I got hold of my first set of team, which is two guys who are currently also working with us, and then we started building the first version of Loka. This is actually the version 2 of Loka. Once we had had that, then we got hold of another three developers and animators and artists into the team. So currently we have a team strength of roughly 8 people in the team. And then we built a version 1 on iOS and Android, and that sort of got us into Shark Tank. Then we pitched on Shark Tank and launched the version 2 soon after. I think we aired on the 4th of January. We launched this version, I think, on the 15th of January or somewhere close to that. And the journey has been amazing. Currently, we currently have almost 2.5 lakh unique visitors on both platforms combined, and it's been a good ride. People are saying good and bad things, and we respect and adore and admire all of the things that people are saying, and we are trying to make it better every day. We just would request everybody to hang in there and give us the love and support they are doing.
Yeah, I think this is uncharted territory, and it's the brave few who kind of, with the vision and foresight, are the ones who kind of understand this and are getting into it and laying the building blocks of what could be the metaverse that we all talk about. You know, the interoperable, open, decentralized world. Yeah, so kudos to be, to you and your team for being amongst the first movers and laying the building blocks and putting down the building blocks of the metaverse here in India. Would you like to talk about your journey at Shark Tank and the funding and how has that been leveraged?
So I remember going to Shark Tank, and I realized that I actually saw a lot of D2C brands while I was going through the first round and the second round and the third round of filters. I realized that Metaverse is definitely not going to be here apart from me. There is no element of crypto. There is no element of the Metaverse that will feature on the show. If at all I feature while I was going through that process, right? And then I realized that while I was actually going to the Shark Tank, I was talking to one of the people in the Shark Tank team, and I remember very clearly what he told me. He said that you're not here to take the funding of let's say 40 lakh, 50 lakh, whatever the amount is. You're here to take the visibility of a prime time show which will be watched by crores of people in India, and you are not pitching to five sharks. You're pitching to the crores of audience who are seeing you from the other side of the television. And that was what hit me really hard. And my pitch essentially was to the janta of India and not to the five sharks. And I'm glad that the janta of India actually really loved what I and my pitch, and was I'm very fortunate and privileged to have their company inside our game, and I meet new people every day. In fact, I'm really sometimes surprised that yesterday I just met a couple in the game who never knew each other, who were both from Ahmedabad, who never knew each other outside the game, but now they are a real world couple and they met through Loka. And these are small stories that inspire me that I am on the right track to building this. So Shark Tank has given us immense visibility, more visibility than we expected, and I'm really grateful.
Well,
Couldn't be more grateful.
we wish you the very best. I wish you and your team the very best. There are a lot of entrepreneurs, here in India who are now trying to put their hands inside this whole metaverse, Web 3.0, spatial web space. What would be your advice to them, the ones who want to set up something in the space of metaverse, or at least who want to understand where would you point them
So I
towards?
think I think one of the really early things that happened to me in life was actually a conversation with the great Matthew Ball himself, and this was back in February 2021. And I was reading on the metaverse for almost 2-3 years now. I was reading on it from I think early 2018ish, and wanted to create something back then, but couldn't do it. Probably did it in 2020, but I remember talking to Matthew Ball and then going through his primer and then going through a lot of content that was there on the metaverse, and this was before metaverse was cool. And I'm actually glad that I did that, because Back then the information wasn't muddled, it was actually very structured. Now it's muddled because everybody wants to sort of cash in on the buzzword, which is the metaverse. So I would recommend people to actually first understand the structure of the metaverse before taking a deep dive. How do you do that is you go to a Matthew Ball website, which is matthewball.vc, read all his primer, realize what is the theory of creating a metaverse, then deep dive into understanding what function your metaverse is doing. Like I'm really impressed by how Pushpak creates next meet, right? He has a function, he has a very very defined function, that I'm going to create a business centric metaverse. And that is the vision that everybody needs to figure out. First, understand what a metaverse is. Secondly, figure out what your metaverse is solving for. Is it solving for social, is it solving for businesses, or is it solving for other things? And then third, create what is your differentiating factor. Are you just becoming a India version of Decentraland or a sandbox, or are you doing something different? And then probably deep dive into actually doing what you want to create. That's the fourth step that you need to probably follow.
Right. Yeah, I guess we need to be very narrow, because I guess any entrepreneur who wants to get into metaverse will be, first of all, will be mind blown by the opportunity that it presents, and might go extremely broad. But I think the best way is to go narrow and
Exactly.
understand, like, okay, this is a problem which you can solve and you should solve, like how you gave an example of Pushpak with next meet, and being narrow and just an even space. I guess, yes, we need to find a problem and try and solve that. Where do
Absolutely. And because you can't solve everything at the same
Exactly.
time, right?
Exactly. Where do you think, and when do you think we will start seeing real value in the metaverse?
Actually, we will be seeing a real value in the metaverse very soon. And the reason for that is that essentially the metaverse is a Gen Z product, right? It is a product for the 10 to 24-year-olds, and we have them in bulk. Right, in India. So, India is one of the youngest countries in the world. In fact, among the bigger countries in terms of population, it's the youngest. If you compare it to China or the US, or Indonesia, one of the more populous countries in the world, it is the youngest. Our average age group is around 27, 28, and we have a sizable population of older Gen Z. That is the exact audience of the metaverse, which is 15-year-olds to 24-year-olds. And once these guys start to adopt a metaverse, like a Loka or a Minecraft or a Fortnite, which they currently are, but not on the scale that we really want. Once that starts happening, you will see metaverse becoming a very casual word, like why don't you Google it, or why don't let's metaverse it, let's we meet at the metaverse. That will be how it will be used. It will be used as a verb, and we'll probably see that in the next 5 years.
Lovely. What's the roadmap of Loka? And if you had to paint a picture of what metaverse could look like in the next 10 years, what would be your.
So I have always believed that reality is overhyped, and reality is reality because you have five senses to actually figure out what it is, right? You can see, you can smell, you can touch, you can hear, right? So if we can somehow replicate all your five senses and put you in a virtual world that is hyper realistic, then it will be almost indistinguishable from what is real and what is made up, right? And that is where the real metaverse comes on its own. The beast becomes larger than you can imagine, right? And we are very close to doing that. We'll be probably doing that before the end of this decade. And we believe that metaverse will emerge as a big force in the next 5 years. It will emerge as probably the biggest force in human history in the next decade, or more probably by the end of this decade. So that is the answer to the second question. The first question is, what was the roadmap? The roadmap is very simple, and I'm a big fan of the Nintendo, and I realize that Nintendo does not compete with the Electronic Arts of the world or the Rockstar Games of the world. They compete with all these games with one simple strategy, which is, I'm not going to create the best looking game. I'm not going to create the games with 100 functionalities. I'm going to create the game which is the most fun game to play. And that's how we look at it. We are going to create a game that is fun, that is Indian, and that just resonates to your soul. And that is our function, because we are a game that focuses on social as the core point, and social cannot be truly activated if there is no localization involved. If it cannot, if let's say I were to introduce a eating game in the world, and I were to introduce, let's say, like momos in the world in Chennai, probably it will not work. And if I were to do the same, probably introduce vada in Delhi, it will not do the same. But if I were to introduce momos in Delhi, vada pav in Mumbai, probably a medu vada in Chennai, that will just, or probably a role in Kolkata, that will make things work. And that is our vision. Our vision is to create a world, firstly replicate real world locations like Baga, Marine Drive, let's say Connaught Place, so on and so forth, and also put in experiences that are localized in nature, bring in artists that are localized in nature, bring in brands that are localized in nature. We want to introduce kurtas into the game. We want to introduce sari into the game. We want to introduce even brands that, let's say, like a brand, let's say, like, for example, I can't think of any. Like a Peter England into the game that really is available in the stores outside your home. So that is the vision. And one of the things that probably I did not touch upon, which is very important to us, we also want to do a lot with the NPCs in the game, right? And currently we are working on partnering with NPCs like Shaktiman into the game. Shaktiman is going to come into the world. You can talk to him. You can take some life lessons from him because he loves doing that. We are introducing Munna Bhaiya from the famous Amazon Prime TV show called Mirzapur into the game. We are introducing Netflix characters into the game. So these are people. So essentially, we are doing this again with the core function of localization, because you've seen this content, you've loved this content. Why don't you have it in this world as a content? And that is what the core vision is.
Lovely. Krishnan, really appreciate you taking time and being part of the podcast. Your vision is huge, really huge, and I hope all of those comes true. And I really wish you the very best. You have actually laid down the blocks of a fantastic platform, and if you kind of push it further, your team grows, this could be a platform which could be the Indian metaverse. Yeah, so thank you for being part of the podcast. And to my listeners, if you like what you hear, see any, then please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye. Thank you, Krishnan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you so much for giving me your time as well. Thank you.